I have the best shirt for this video, by the way. I just want you to know.
Nice. I look forward to seeing that someday. What's up, Mesa Falcons? It's me, it's CGB, and I'm here with Rarin. Hi, Rarin.
Hey, dude.
You're not used to it. You can't handle it. You can't handle a Mesa Falcon.
We don't do it often enough where I completely remember that you're going to say it. So every single time I'm like, oh yeah, he says that.
Dude, it comes up everywhere now on the MTG Goldfish podcast. Like, they made me like review the Mesa Falcon thing, and I was like, oh god. Anyway, today we are playing underrated, overrated. I am going to be showing you pairs of cards that, when these were revealed, the MTG community had a very strong reaction to one way, or in the exact opposite way. Either they were like, oh my god, what the hell is this? It's gonna break the game. Or they were just completely like dismissive of it. Didn't really understand what havoc it would reap on the world. All right.
Okay.
You are going to try to figure out which card was overrated and which card was underrated by the Magic community before they got to play with them.
Okay, I'm down.
This should be something you're good at, I think.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna say anything just in case on how this video goes. By the way, I saw yesterday, by the time we were recording this, that Nadu was banned. Or
that is
correct.
Correct. That is correct.
That is. I'm so happy for everybody.
They also released a long article about how this happened.
What do you
Which
mean?
is a
like the design?
Yes, the designers released an article about how Nadu happened, and it's a fascinating read. Basically, the final version was never tested.
Sounds like Hearthstone.
Now this is the good part. This is the good part. Remember I told you this was made for Modern? Nadu was made for Modern, the Modern format of Magic the Gathering?
Yes.
Well, that doesn't mean that they don't want to sell the set to Commander players. They want to sell every set to Commander players because Commander players spend a lot of money. So Nadu is a card in Modern Horizons 3 that they wanted to be a good commander. And they had Commander players come in and test a version of Nadu. The Commander players determined it was too annoying in Commander in a different state. Its abilities were different. It gave everything flash, meaning you could play permanents anytime you could play an instant at any time.
Yes.
And the Commander players thought that was too annoying. So they changed Nadu, took away the ability to give everything flash, and instead gave it the ability to give that particular interaction to all the creatures, where it just becomes an endless value machine. And they never tested it.
That's I gotta read the full article. I'm actually really impressed that they admitted that. I think I'd have to give a lot of kudos for the people who are willing to say that out loud. You know?
Yes, actually.
That's crazy.
I know the designer who wrote the article, and he does love his job and takes it very seriously, and it was kind of amazing to read. But it's also scary because it boils down to whiny Commander players who don't like blue ruined Modern. Because they didn't like blue players being like, in response, I flash in this thing.
To be fair, that does sound very good. That sounds amazing.
It does sound amazing.
So I can understand the frustration behind that, but yeah, I gotta go read the article. But I did want to mention it because I remember asking you last time. I think, did they ban that card yet?
Yep, it happened. It happened. Nadu died. Finally, a design mistake for the ages. Nadu, when Nadu was revealed, the community basically freaked out and said that's a mistake, and they were completely right. But there are plenty of times they've been wrong and either missed an amazing card or drastically overrated a card. So here is your first pair. One is overrated, one is underrated. Ready?
Yeah. Oh god, okay. I was ready until I saw both of them, and now I'm scared. Okay. Planeswalker versus a spell. All right. To bolt the Fiend Blooded, 2 red, Okay, so it starts with 2 life or whatever it is, loyalty. +1 to draw a card, then discard a card at random. Ooh. Wow, I didn't realize Hearthstone was in here, man. What the hell? I think that's the first time I've read at random in Magic the Gathering. Could be wrong.
At least for what you do to yourself. I showed you some cards that made the opponent discard at random, but yeah, as far as doing it to yourself, absolutely.
Okay. -4 is this deals damage equal to the number of cards in target player's hand to that player. Whoa! Okay, so that means, just so I'm clear, if they have 7 cards, -4 to deal 7?
Yeah.
Okay. -6, gain control of all creatures until the end of turn. Untap then. They gain haste until the end of turn. Oh my god. He starts with 2. Okay. I have a feeling that one might be the more overrated one, but let's go to the next card. Nexus of Fate, 5 neutral, 2 blue. This is instant. Take an extra turn after this one. Oh god. If Nexus of Fate would be put into the graveyard from anywhere, reveal Nexus of Fate and shuffle it into its owner's library instead. Oh god, I was so confident it was the first one, but like, take an extra turn after this. Dude, this one is I hate this. This is so mind gaming. Okay, the thing is, let me think about this logically. Taking an, I gotta, rather than thinking about it, is it overrated or underrated? Let me actually like try to evaluate the cards myself and make like an educated guess here.
Damn it, that's too smart. Please, just hype train this.
Just do it all vibes. All right, sorry,
yeah,
right.
just only vibes. If you analyze it, it's no fun.
I think the more overrated card here is the Planeswalker. I think people would look at the +1 and be like visibly upset. Especially because it has the chance to just like maybe ruin your whole game. I'm not sure. Yeah, it has very powerful effects, but like, I think it causes more of an emotional response. But also, like, the thing is, you showed me cards already that when you take an extra turn, it's just very good. And those cards were great. The thing is, this is 7 mana. And that sounds awful. But that's still probably insane. Now that I have standard experience, I can finally say that in blue, this will probably be really good as far as I'm concerned. So I can definitely... It like literally goes back into your deck. And you can... Oh my... Hold on, sorry. I'm trying to... I mean, I'm getting an emotional response after Nexus of Fate, so I feel like that one might be more overrated. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go with my gut here. Yeah. I'm going to go with my gut. I think Nexus of Fate was overrated and the other one was underrated.
You think Tibalt was underrated and Nexus of Fate is overrated?
Yeah, I think from an effect standpoint, I think taking an extra turn is infinitely better than the other one. So, like, I'm going to go with that one's overrated.
Okay. When Tibalt the Blood Fiend was revealed, it was the first time a Planeswalker had ever cost 2 mana. 3 mana Planeswalkers like Oko hadn't been released yet, but generally speaking, the cheaper the Planeswalker, the earlier it hit the board. The earlier it hit the board, the earlier the loyalty starts to accumulate. The higher the loyalty accumulates, the more snowbally the game is. So when they revealed the first ever 2 mana Planeswalker, people went nuts. And they were very excited about Tibalt the Blood Fiend and were scared it was going to change Magic and all this stuff, and that you just couldn't have cards in your hand or play creatures anymore. It was like, no matter what we do, we're screwed. The -4 kills us if we hold back. The -6 kills us if we play. People were terrified of this card.
Okay.
And then they tried it, and the discarding a card at random pissed them off so much. And Tibalt saw basically no competitive play in the history of Magic whatsoever. Tibalt was vastly overrated. Nexus of Fate. Look, I want you to look at the line just below the flavor text, just below the text box where it says buy a box.
Okay.
This was one of the first ever buy a box promos. The only way to get this card was to buy an entire box of the set.
How much was that?
I mean, about $120 back then.
Okay, that's that. Depending on the time, could be a lot. I mean, that's still a decent amount of money.
Yeah, this is 2018.
Okay, so like eight grand at this point. So
yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So the value of extra turn spells was known, but the way that Nexus of Fate was kind of promoted as a buy a box promo in a way kind of made people expect less from it, and also kind of made them miss it because it wasn't technically like in the set. Like a lot of people looked at the set list and didn't see Nexus of Fate. It was,
yeah, it also makes sense that you say that because it says like 306 out of 280 in the bottom.
Yeah,
that is oh my god, that's something I would never notice. What the fuck?
Yep. The first one's tricky. We're tricky. I'm getting in your head right away because that makes the content wonderful. And so there were people sounding alarm bells about Nexus of Fate. There's going to be comments like, "Hey, I read a tweet about Nexus of Fate," but for the most part, when this came out, people didn't flock to the card. There were some people who played it at early on tournaments, but didn't see early success. It was a little bit of a slow grind, but people figured it out. They figured out that they could stall the game to casting Nexus of Fate, and that eventually it just meant the end of the game, because as you dig through your deck and there are 4 Nexus of Fates and you're shuffling them back in, eventually you just draw nothing but Nexus of Fate, and anything you want to is your win con. Anything that can poke the opponent for a piece of damage is a win con. So Nexus of Fate went on to win Mythic Championships. Nexus of Fate went on to get, it's the only card I believe ever that's been banned only in best of one, because like that's a whole story of its own, but players would loop this with no win con to get their opponent to concede.
Okay, so I just learned drastically that I gotta remember that this isn't actually what the best card is. It's just how people felt about it. This is like the Commander ban thing all over again.
It is.
I went too analytical. I need to take a step back and ask myself, would I be annoyed or do I think it's broken? Okay, because like logically, Nexus of Fate does seem like the better card in my mind, which I think I'm gonna take brownie points, even though you're not gonna count it. But for the next one, I got this in the bag. I gotta think emotionally.
All right.
Emotionally,
you solved the meta.
I'm in maxing already. It's the first card. All right, here we go. Okay, which one? Ask myself before I read these. Which one pisses me off more? All right, let's go. What is the art on the second one first and foremost? That is the only. I'll go to the second one first if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Assassin's Trophy. 1 black, 1 green.
Yes.
Destroy target's permanent and opponent. Sorry, destroy target permanent and opponent controls. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle the library. Okay. Doesn't really bother me. It's fine. I think like overall, just what I've seen, it's not the worst thing in the world. Oh god, what is this? Yumizawa's? Is that right? Zawa's?
Sure.
Yumizawa's. Sure.
Yeah.
And then I think that's called a JIT. I've never seen that word before in my life either. 2 neutral. Legendary artifact equipment. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage, put 2 charged counters on this weapon or equipment. Remove a charge counter from this. Choose one. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. Oh, sorry, +2/+2 until the end of turn, or target creature gets -1/-1 until the end of turn, or you gain 2 life. Okay, sorry. This is equipped to, so deals combat damage. Put 2 charge counters on this. So you have to deal combat damage first, and that also means with defending. I think that's the case, right?
Yeah. If you block with it, that would also count. Yep. Anytime the creature does damage to another creature or player
is this
in combat.
And is this at instant speed? Like, can I remove a charge at instant speed?
You may activate the ability at instant speed. That is correct.
Okay. Emotionally, I think I'm a little bit more triggered from the weapon. Destroying a target permanent? Wait. That's a land too, right?
It can be, yeah.
See, the thing is like, I don't know if this helps me at all, but there's that card in standard right now called like Demolition something, and it's almost the same thing. And I'm never like annoyed when my opponent does it, but I guess they're also spending a lot more mana to do it. Like, it doesn't give like a visceral response, but I could see people being very agitated about this weapon. So I feel like the weapon was overrated. And that's my final answer. I don't have an emotional response to Assassin's Trophy, so I think we'll be all right.
Okay. Umezawa's Jeet was
Sorry, what you call me? Say that again?
Umezawa's Jeet. Or Jite, or however you want to put it.
Okay.
Absolutely defined a format back in the days of Kamigawa, this being 2005. So it is quite a while ago. It snuck out in a little set, I think Betrayers of Kamigawa is what it was. And I had never even heard of this card. I was basically told that the set it came out in, Betrayers of Kamigawa, was trash. People were very down on Kamigawa. Kamigawa followed the block that had all the Phyrexian like artifact shenanigans, Ravager Affinity, one of the most broken sets of all time, Mirrodin, which we covered in the past.
Right. Yeah.
So people were very down on Kamigawa. The first set, at first they were excited, then as it kind of sank in that these weren't as powerful, people were disillusioned. This was the second Kamigawa set. Everybody told me it was trash. They're like, don't even bother reading the cards. Nobody's going to play them. The first time somebody played this against me, I had never even heard of it before. And it took over the game in the most brutal way. This card, once it starts piling up counters, none of your stuff lives. Their stuff never dies. And you can't kill them. They just... once there are 2 or 3 counters on this thing, it's over. Combat is a nightmare. And the format at the time, legendaries, worked in a weird way where if you played a legendary and your opponent had a legendary of the same name, they both died. So there wasn't enough artifact removal in that format. And people literally just played 4 Jittes to destroy the opponent's Jitte. And based on how it took over the format, Umezawa's Jitte was definitely underrated in preview season. A lot of, I think there was a lot of TLDR as well as the general attitude towards the Kamigawa sets just led this to being a sleeper that took over the game for a good amount of time. Assassin's Trophy. When this got spoiled, it was one of the first times that there was the effect that was like blow up anything you want and they get a basic land. People lost their mind. They thought the world was over. They thought nothing was safe. Why cast a 3-mana creature if it's just going to get Assassin's Trophied? 4 in every deck. People were terrified of this card. Did you know? You've been playing Standard. You've even played Black and Green. Did you know that this card is legal right now?
No, I didn't.
Yes, it is.
Because I've never seen it.
Because nobody plays it. Because giving the opponent a land is a downside that will bite you in the ass so hard, you never want to do it in like the first 4 or 5 turns of the game. It's only good in the like late game where the extra land isn't useful.
See, it's interesting how much that matters. Because like in Hearthstone, there's a card called Naturalize, which is almost the same concept. Where it's like not giving you an extra mana, but it's a 1 mana, destroy any minion and you draw 2. Like you're the person that lost the minion draws 2. Or I think actually it always says your opponent draws 2. And people always have that same like concept of like making your opponent draw 2 is like the worst thing ever. Why would I play it? But it ended up being like really good once people realized it wasn't as much of a downside. So it's like the complete reverse of what you're describing.
Oh, but do you see the difference there?
One gives you mana, one gives you, but the thing is, right, as someone who really likes the mana system in Hearthstone, cards back in the day were extremely relevant. Like a lot of games would go through like just fatigue, or not fatigue, but you would end up top decking a lot of the time. So why would you ever want to give your opponent 2 cards ever in your life, even if that meant destroying a minion? But again, it ended up being like, that's actually not that bad. Most of the time you're actually really happy with giving your opponent 2 cards if you could just destroy a minion. But I guess I don't understand how, when was this card released?
Oh, the first time? Maybe it is 2018. It says 2018 there. Yeah, this is the first one. Yep.
And people were what?
Yeah.
Does it blow your mind how I looked at this card and went, okay?
Dude, there wasn't really a card that's like 2 mana, instant speed, target permanent. You know, land, creature, artifact, enchantment, whatever it is, gone.
I guess I really don't understand how good it is to give a land to somebody. Like even after playing, like I think having more mana is great, and obviously that's the case. But I think a majority of the time, like, is it really that bad? I guess it also draws you an extra card. That's also good.
In a way, it both draws the card and puts it on the battlefield.
Yeah,
but basically the level of what the opponent can do with their turn is versus yours is very defining in a lot of games. Like the big problem is you can't play this on turn 2 or 3 because your opponent's going to play like a 5 or 6 drop earlier than they were supposed to, and you won't be able to answer that. So you end up sitting just staring at this. Or like if say you're against mono red, all right, you've played some mono red. Say you use this.
Clarify that. Played against it. I haven't played it.
Yeah, you've played against it. So say that you use this on their slick shot show off on turn 2 or their whatever their mouse is, right? You use this on that creature that's attacking you. They untap. They now are able to cast like a creature and like 3 more pump spells and hit you for like 15. And you're like, okay, well that got worse.
Yeah, but that's my point, right? Like I think that this card doesn't look good.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like it doesn't look good, so I'm surprised at how many people thought it was going to be that good.
Magic players were trust me, they thought there were a lot of people saying 4 of every deck, number 1 card in the set, best card in years. Not close.
Yeah, because like I don't know. That's what I said. Like when I got the reaction, like when I read this card, and like my reaction to this card was very like whatever. Like okay, like I'm gonna move on. Like that doesn't seem that bad. That's what I'm saying. I didn't realize like how much I guess from like theoretically speaking, like getting a land. No, I can't even. My concept is like blown away here. I understand why people would be upset, but like I think like reading the card from someone who doesn't understand how good it is to pull a land and it's untapped immediately for your opponent I guess is what I will say. Like I need to actually play with that to truly understand how good it is. I'm trying to think if there's a Hearthstone card that does like the same concept. The closest thing I think we really have is like Doomkin, but I don't even think that's like it's not even the same thing. I continue. Sorry, this one's I hate this, by the way. I want you to know this is awful. It's my brain is telling me evaluate the card as it is and then make a judgment from there, which I've now done 2 separate times differently for both these pairs. But my instinct is wrong, so I have to go with I'm not gonna go with my instinct this time. See how it goes.
Okay, I tried to warn you. Evaluating the card would ruin it.
Yeah, okay, you're right. I'm just gonna flip a coin. All right, let's see what we got. Ooh, Savage Knuckleblade. Love the name of that guy. Looks dope too. 1 green, 1 blue, 1 red. Okay, 2 neutral, 1 green. This gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. Activate this ability only once each turn. 2 neutral, 1 blue. Return this to the owner's hand. And 1 red. Savage Knuckleblade gains haste until the end of turn. I learned an interaction yesterday. Can I tell you about it? I didn't know that's actually how it works.
Yeah, tell me stories.
I didn't realize if I pulled a monster out of my opponent's graveyard and then they used a card that says return it to the owner's hand and that monster's on my side of the board, that it goes back to their side of, or it goes to their hand, I should say. That blew my mind. Because if you did the exact same thing in Hearthstone, I would get the card even though it didn't start in my deck.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
I was like, it makes sense with the language written on the card to its owner's hand. But like when I actually saw it happen, I was like, wait, what? Why did I go to his hand?
Yeah, I adopted it. I'm the owner now.
Exactly.
I'm your daddy.
I was so confused. Okay, let me evaluate this card. 3 mana 4/4 seems decent. The problem is that you need 3 different mana colors, which isn't very likely, I would say. Really depends on how.
So for context on that, this came out in Khans of Tarkir. There were 5 different quote clan or khans. All of them are 3 color. The set is designed around these 3 color combinations.
Okay, so this is likely to happen.
This came out, this was revealed and released in a set designed to play these color combinations.
Okay, so it is more likely to happen during this time.
Yeah, more than historically, yes.
Okay. Desecration Demon, 2 neutral, 2 black. Flying at the 4 mana 6/6. Okay, hold on. Flying at the beginning of each combat, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If a player does, tap this and put a +1/+1 counter on it. Oh, I like the counterplay there. That's kind of cute. But what if you don't have a creature?
And you get punched.
Wait, this is kind of nasty. That's okay. Hold on. I'm feeling the vibes here. I think that one really rattles people. Because then there's that conscious effort of like, if I don't kill my own minion, which sucks, I'm going to take damage regardless. And if I do, he's still there, or this demon's still there, and it gets even stronger. Savage Knuckleblade, I mean, it looks good. Like, that's a nice stat. Actually, okay, hold on. Both of these are rather interesting, to be honest. A 4-mana 6/6 with flying actually seems pretty decent. Would I play that currently in standard Magic? Probably. I think maybe you can get away with it. Now, depending on when this came out, based on the card, it says 2012. I can see people being very upset about this card. Savage Knuckleblade. All of these are instant effects on Savage, right? Just to double check.
Yep, you can use them at instant speed, all of them.
Oh my god. I don't know if that's even good. Savage Knuckleblade gains haste until the end of turn. That's really interesting. So 4 mana to get a 4/4 with haste. That seems good. Return this to your hand. I mean, that's fine. I guess there's some theoretical combo where you could just keep returning it and bouncing it and doing haste and go. Wait, if you do it once, though, do you have to keep spending the red mana to gain haste?
Yeah. Well, so these abilities can all be used whether it has summoning sickness or not, because there's a colon. There's not a tap symbol. So they can all be used anytime the turn that it comes out.
What I meant was like, if I bounce it to my hand and I've already given it haste, does it still have haste until the end of turn? So when I replay it, it just keeps going for 4 face without spending the red mana again. But I'm assuming that it's only like per on the field, and then once it's out of field, it doesn't have that anymore.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the demon then.
In what sense?
That it is the overrated one. I feel like this at a time would be really frustrating to play or probably play against. And I feel like most people's visual reactions would be towards the demon rather than the other one, the Knuckleblade. Knuckleblade seems good, but I don't think it's like, when I look at it, I'm like, oh god, that doesn't look like broken. I could see people being upset about the demon. So therefore, I think they would be more inclined to overrate it.
What's really interesting often about the responses to these cards on social media is people always look at like these bad scenarios. So in the case of Desecration Demon, a lot of the discourse was around the sacrifice a creature ability, like you're saying, that would be a feels bad. But in their minds, it seemed like the people evaluating the demon were talking about, I'll just sacrifice my 1/1. I'll just sacrifice my token.
Oh,
and
so
then you can't even
reverse?
hit me. And that is why Desecration Demon was considered bulk draft garbo during preview season, but went on to be an absolute monster in Mono Black Devotion, a 4/of for years in the format, and won many a tournament. But Desecration Demon was the underrated card in this scenario, while the overrated Savage Knuckleblade people looked at as, oh my god, it's only 3 mana for a 4/4. It's got 3 positive abilities and no downside. This card is insane. Bro. And the problem is there's nothing 3 mana about Savage Knuckleblade, because to use the abilities, you have to commit so much mana to the card.
You know what I'm realizing from this video? I need to start reviewing Magic cards and becoming a prophet. Like, I am 100% on what card ended up being better. This is like,
Yes. And you know, you are so like, I'm just going to say it. If you can figure out that one card sucks and the other doesn't, you know which one was overrated and which one was underrated.
You're right. But like, yeah, you're right. Okay. You're right. I got. So I find, okay, I'm min-maxing it further. I find the good one and I pick the opposite. Okay.
Yep. You got this. I believe in you.
Okay,
we've warmed up the brain muscles.
Whatever card I don't have a reaction to is the card I'm going for being over or underrated. Okay. Oh my god, what is this? Demolish. That sounds correct. Demolish.
There it is.
Yeah. Okay. 4 blue. Skeleton Wizard. Okay. This spell costs blue. It's 1 blue less, right? That's how you say that?
Yep.
This spell costs 1 blue less to cast for each instant and sorcery spell you've cast this turn. Whenever this attacks, exile up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. Copy it. You may cast the copy. You may cast this card from your graveyard by exiling 4 instant and or sorcery cards from your graveyard in addition to paying its other costs. So this is like an instant boy. No, it's
yes.
It's an instant boy. It's
look at the instant boy here.
It's an infinite boy is what I meant. As long as you have the resources to keep doing this over and over again. I don't know if this is good. That's a very like Disneyland card. But maybe I'm wrong. Hold on, let me read the other one first. I'm not having a very positive reaction to that card. So let's see. Curse Scroll, 1 mana. You can spend 3 mana and tap this. Name a card. Target opponent chooses a card at random from your hand. If he or she chooses the name card, Curse Scroll deals 2 damage to the target creature or player. What the fuck? Wait, what? Wait, so 1 mana to play this, and then you have 3 mana, and you have to tap this, and you name... But, okay, if you only have 1 card in your hand, this is guaranteed to do 2 damage every single time. Is that nuts?
If you know the name of the card in your hand, yes.
Okay, as long as I can speak English.
Yep.
And this 1 card in my hand. Wait, is that nuts? That seems kind of sick. I feel like I'm living in Disneyland here. Hold on, I gotta reread this this big skeleton boy. I don't. This one I had the strat, and now I'm not sure which one I actually think is like the worst one here, or I guess the better card. Because dealing 2. Because once you tap Curse Scroll, you can't untap it. You have to wait a full other turn. And I seriously doubt that 2 damage a turn every single turn is going to be good enough. And I'm also assuming if you don't have a card in your hand, this does nothing.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. I got to play this accordingly. All right. I think the underrated card is Curse Scroll.
Final answer?
Final answer.
Final answer.
Final answer.
You are correct.
Okay. Now, I want people to know that after reading Curse Scroll, I immediately thought the Skeleton Wizard was way better. So I just went with like you said, just pick the worst one. All right, perfect.
well, let me ask you, because I find this interesting. Why do you think Curse Scroll was underrated by the community? Like, if you could try to guess, for like a reason.
3 mana to potentially deal 2 damage sounds awful. So
it does sound pretty bad.
Why would I ever want to play it? This would require some 5-headed scientist in a lab to come up with a concoction and a cook for this deck or for this card to be playable. And I'm assuming what you're about to tell me is that was the case, that this card ended up being very good because someone figured out how to use this card in a very good way.
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you something.
Yeah, go for it.
Would mono red play this card?
Would mono red play this card?
They dump their hand. They get 2 damage guaranteed every turn. Once they dump their hand, what's their opponent's life total? How many turns can they take it?
Yeah, but if you dump your hand, that means you call this immediately at the start of your turn. You're spending 3 mana guaranteed on this. I think I can understand the logic behind it, but I don't imagine that being very strong in current Magic. But
in current Magic, it's a little slow. This came out in 1997, and in the day, this card was underrated because card advantage was king. People had figured out that the person who draws a lot of cards is likely to win. 5-head. Wow, holy shit. The first season of the Pro Tour had happened, and we had figured it out. Drawing cards good. All right.
Makes sense.
So the idea of having 5 cards in hand and using this was very sad and you just felt stupid. But the red decks were about to kind of make their mark on Magic. The very first version of mono red aggro had placed highly at Pro Tour Dallas at the end of 1996. And when they adopted this card, the red decks were very good at rushing the opponent down to like 6 life and then running out of gas, while the opponent had to then turn around and figure out how to close the game out. And what Curse Scroll was amazing at was, after they rushed the opponent down to 6 health, just over the next 3 turns, draw my card, name a card, you take 2, play my card, go. Draw a card, name a card, you take 2, play my card. If it does any damage to you, you're dead. It was the closer. It was the piece that sat on the board and finished the job.
Interesting.
Yep.
I'm actually surprised there wasn't something better than that, but I guess it makes sense.
Demi-Lich? This card was just a lot of text that people were really excited about. Oh my God, if you have 4 1-mana instants, it's free. And when it attacks, it recasts them and you can get it back from the graveyard. It's just instant payoff, which Blue loves. This card was terrible. Like, people tried so hard to make this work and it was just awful. This card, I am a blue mage who loves instants. This card made me sick. What a waste of mythics. What a scam. Oh my
card,
God.
Bro. What do you mean?
It is.
That's a fun card when you look at it. Yeah. Hearthstone has that a lot where like the most obnoxious card, like in terms of like the amount of reading you have to do and the amount of effects it can have. People are like, oh my God, it's gonna be so good. And then it always ends up being not, because like it's such a huge hoop to get through to make the card actually playable. The effect of this doesn't seem as strong as I think it would be either, right? But maybe I'm wrong. Like
it's like felt like it never happened, dude. It's like,
yeah, because it has to attack. God. Like that's that's okay. Yeah,
it's so bad, dude. Anyway,
we take this. This one matters. Okay, perfect. Let's go. Huge. All right. Oh,
we're on the board.
Another plane. Who is this? Is that Thanos?
Yes. No.
Oh God.
You tell me. You tell me if that's Thanos.
He kind of looks like him in like a different dimension. Okay. How do I say this? Obnixilis?
Actually, perfect.
Oh, let's go. The adversary. 1 neutral, 1 black, 1 red. Okay. Casualty X. The copy isn't a legendary and has starting loyalty X. As you cast this spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power X. When you do copy this spell, the copy becomes a token. So this becomes a copy of this planeswalker, but does the token also get the abilities or no?
Yep.
Oh, shit. Okay. 3 loyalty to start off, +1. Each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. If you control a demon or devil, you gain 2 life. Okay, that seems good. I actually know how good that is because of Liliana currently in standard, which is a very, very good card. -2, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. -7, target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. Okay, I can already see people being very upset about the casualty like passive on this. I think that's, I don't know. Wait, actually, what do you guys refer to that as?
Passive is often the state. Yeah, like an ability a planeswalker just has is often called a passive.
Okay, because that seems like a very powerful thing. If I could do +1 each time and deal 4, that seems very strong. All right, let me look at this. Tarmogoth. What is that?
I don't know.
It looks like I couldn't even describe that. Okay, all right, regardless. That's how you say it. Tarmogoth. 1 neutral, 1 green. This card's power is equal to the number of card types among cards in all graveyards, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. So it's always a 2-mana 1/1 equal to the number of card types among cards in all graveyards. So we're talking like artifact, creature, planeswalker, enchantment, like everything. Yes. And this card was released in 2020. It might be a reprint, so I'm not sure, but
this is a reprint.
Could you give me an estimate of like the max stats this could potentially have, like just so I understand what Disneyland I'm going to?
Yeah. First correction is going to be that this starts as a 0/1.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Yep.
For sure. Oh, it's tough. It says yeah. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Number of card types. The card types in Magic are land, creature, artifact, enchantment, planeswalker, that's 5, invasion, there's something called kindred spell, that's 7, and I feel like there's something I'm missing.
So let's say give or take 7.
Oh, instants and sorceries. Yeah, instants and sorceries.
Okay, so give or take 9, somewhere around there.
Well, I will give you this up front. Invasions weren't released when this card came out, so only now is that even a possibility. Kindred spells are pretty rare. It's not they're not unplayable, but they're not found very often. So at least 2 of those are pretty niche.
Okay, so let's go for like 7 or 6 at max, somewhere around there.
If you get them in the graveyard, yep.
Would I play a 2-mana 6/6? Yes, but in reality, this is like a 2-mana like 3/3 when this comes out, which I think stat wise
3/4.
Oh, sorry, 3/4. You're right. Sorry. Yeah, yes, you were right. So 3/4. That's pretty good. I think a 2-mana 3/4 Magic seems very strong. Let me go back to Thanos over here for a second. I feel like this card would have to be the overrated one just because of like the text. I can't imagine a world where people would have like a very hyped reaction to Tarmogoyf. Just feels like a card that you'd be like, feels like it's so difficult to make it big. But also, a 2-mana big boy meatball, that's the juice. But I don't know. Making 2 Planeswalker for 1 at the cost of sacrificing something doesn't seem that bad. Seems very strong for most people. I would have to imagine that Thanos was the overrated one. But it's good. Like, that's not a bad card whatsoever. But Tarmogoyf feels like it'd be... People would look at it and be like, oh, that doesn't seem like it's going to end up being that good. But it probably ended up being very good. Because like a 2-mana 4/5, you're probably really stoked for. And that doesn't seem like that's unlikely to happen. So I'm going to go with... what is his name again? Obnixilis being the overrated one.
Final answer?
Final answer.
He's on the board. He's in the groove. Let's go. Yeah. Tarmogoyf is one of the ultimate underdog stories as a card that got no hype during preview season and went on to be like worth $100 a card, as it was just absolutely necessary in that format. It is, and it went on to be a beloved card in other formats too, because people were like, there's not a lot of ways to fill the graveyard, so how big is this really going to be? What they realized upon actually playing with the card is that you fill the graveyard by playing the game of Magic. Yes. Things just go to the graveyard when you're playing an interactive competitive game of Magic. So Tarmogoyf was often a 3/4 or 4/5 for 2, which was freaking amazing in that era of Magic. And it went on to be a multi-format all-star, and most Magic players of a certain age know what it means when you say Tarmogoyf. Obnixilis the Adversary. The thumbnail for the first video I made with Obnixilis the Adversary said another Oko as the text. Nice. And that people were so terrified of this card from the moment it was spoiled.
Wait, hold on. You caused a bias then.
I mean, I was part of the bias for sure, but they were freaking out before this came out. A lot of people had this as their number 1 card in the set on their top 10 lists. A lot of very good players did. In the early access event that streamers get to participate in, it was everywhere, and it was doing amazing things. So right away, people were very afraid of this card, and it probably got a lot of mythics to be spent. As you said, Obnixilis is not a bad card, and it would see niche play throughout the format, but usually as a 1 of or a 2 of. The bottom line was that once you figured out the play pattern, the very first 2-mana creature that came out, the opponent would try to kill your creature, keep your board clear, and try to make it hard for Obnixilis to come down as a copy. When Obnixilis did come down in pairs, it was good, but it wasn't busted because of Punisher mechanics. And what that means in Magic is when you give your opponent options, it's usually a bad thing. When it says each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card, they'll make the choice that is best for them. You know, sometimes they have a useless card, sometimes they don't need the life, and you don't have a lot of say over how powerful your effect is. Both are good, but neither is busted, and one is usually much worse for the opponent than the other, and they get to choose the one that's better for them. So Obnixilis was fine, a totally fine card. Was it another Oko? No. Did it break the format? No. Was it banned, as some people said it would be? Maybe I was one of them. I don't remember for sure. No, it was not banned. Obnixilis was a good role player until the end of its time in Standard, but it certainly wasn't a format definer like Tarmogoyf.
All right, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm kind of good at this. I figured it out.
Well, let's see if you can get this one, because one is a card you know, and the other is a card I'm curious to see what you have to say about it.
Okay. What card? Ooh, Sheo. Okay. All right, let's do Force of Will first. 3 neutral, 2 blue. You may pay 1 life and remove a blue card in your hand from the game instead of paying Force of Will's casting cost. Effects that prevent or redirect damage cannot be used to counter this loss of life. Counter target spell. That is fucking broken. Okay, hold on. Wait, what? That card is disgusting. 1 life and remove 1 blue card from your hand from the game. So it goes in the exile pool, or like even like an extra pool, I'm guessing. Maybe it's like the never coming back, you're fucking gone pool.
That's right.
That's disgusting. Because like if you think about it logically, if you're gonna counter a spell anyways, you're paying a card. So like I'm gonna pay 1 life and not spend any mana to stop someone from casting a spell. That's broken. So I mean, look, now the question comes down to, because I know what Sheo does, but I'll read it for the people. How do you pronounce this card again? What do you say?
Shieldred the Apocalypse.
Shieldred. Is it bad that I call it Sheo? Just for like...
I'm sure no Magic players whatsoever have a problem with that.
Okay, I'm just going to call it Sheo the Apocalypse. 2 neutral, 2 black. Death Touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. It's also a 4/5. This card's very good. It's weird that maybe since rotation, I don't know if it's as good as I thought it was going to be, because I remembered you showed me this card before I even actually got to play with it. But usually, like, there are moments where this card can like win you a game on the spot. Because your opponent just can't answer it. Like, all they want to do is draw cards so you win. It's also the life gain, so it's just such a huge threat that needs to be answered. And the fact that it kills like any minion it has combat with is just very, very good. But you're trying to tell me that Force of Will is just infinitely better than this card? I don't know, bro. I'd rather spend 1 life and lose a card to just counter the Sheo from entering the field.
Whoa. I'm trying to tell you that during previous season, one of these cards was severely overrated for the standard play, and the other was severely underrated.
Right, you are right. Which is why I think that, oh my god, actually fuck. You have to tell me after you go through your spiel, like how strong Force of Will was in standard. I'm sure you will, but I'm going to assume that Force of Will was underrated. Like, I feel like Sheo was probably overrated for how powerful it was going to be. It ended up still probably being very good. But I feel like people saw the fact that they're going to lose a card and was like, no fucking way, Force of Will is not going to be played. It's also like 5 mana, whatever. So I have to go with Force of Will is underrated. Like, there's no way that it's Sheo. There's no way. Final answer.
Okay. I'll just tell you straight up. Force of Will, for being an absolutely busted, amazing staple in EDH, Legacy, every format it was legal in, except for one. And that format was standard.
No, fuck me. I said it was overrated or underrated, though. Hold on. What do you mean?
Yep. In the previous season, everybody lost their mind for Force of Will. They drove its price up an incredible amount before it was even released. The idea of countering something for free. And they were right. Card is completely nuts. But it didn't have a big impact in standard because it required too much commitment to blue, and blue at the time couldn't hold its own as a support color. I know, it's crazy, but people thought that every deck would have 4 Force of Wills. It turned out decks had 1 or 2 Force of Wills because blue was their support color, and that was how standard was back then. It's awkward because Force of Will has gone on to be an absolute monster staple of blue decks in Eternal formats. There is no question it's an amazing card, but as far as its impact on the format it was coming into when Alliances was released, I can tell you I was there. Force of Will was really overrated, and it didn't make an impact on standard in any meaningful way for a long time.
Don't believe you.
So back then, card draw, card advantage was actually really hard to come by. It really was. Right. So going down, it is like going down a card, but it is 2 for 1ing yourself. You're using 2 cards to counter 1. Yes, you pay no mana. But you're also talking about blue at the time was a color that couldn't solve any of its own problems. It couldn't remove anything. It had to counter spells or it would lose. So if your opponent played turn 1 creature, turn 2 creature, and you didn't counter either of them, you could eventually just die because you just got stopped. Mono blue wasn't an acceptable strategy. Heavy blue was barely an acceptable strategy. All right.
So here's a question for you then. Would this card see play in current standard?
That's a great question. Yes, this card would see play in current standard. I think that mono blue now solves enough of its own problems. We understand the value of tempo and bouncing the opponent's things. We understand the importance of finishers like Haughty Djinn and Tolarian Terror that come down and end the game in a reasonable amount of time. It's not enough to counter everybody's stuff. You have to hit them with 1 or 2 counter spells, then finish a game if you're in blue. Blue didn't have those tools back then.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Makes sense.
So, and for those of you getting in the comments talking about Forbidian and talking about Turbostasis or things like that, I'm talking about the format right when Alliances was released, when Alliances was the newest set. I promise I was there. I am that freaking old. And the other side of this that's actually really hard to grasp is, do we learn nothing? Do we learn nothing as Magic players over the years? Because Shieldred the Apocalypse was criminally underrated in preview season. People looked at this card and they just stopped reading because it was a 4-mana creature that didn't do anything the turn it entered the battlefield with a trigger. So they assumed everybody would have a removal spell, they would go for the Throat the Shieldred, and you would achieve nothing for your 4 mana. That was the Dies to Doomblade mentality that was still very popular in Magic at the time, that everything had to have an ETB, it had to be a spell attached to a body, or it wasn't good, it wasn't playable. And people during preview season, very good players, thought Shieldred would be bad, didn't even have it on their top 10 list. There were some notable exceptions who saw through it, saw that this didn't die to a lot of the removal that was available and that its effect could be warping. But once Shieldred was on the battlefield, once people experienced this card, it ends games fast. Because if you don't have it, you're just going to die looking for it because it's going to drain you for every card. And it makes it so hard to kill the opponent because they're gaining so much life. It was wild.
This one was tough. This is tough. This was hard. This one wasn't fair.
Yes, this one was very hard. I really enjoyed putting this one together.
I got baited, to be honest.
And I'm going to tell you, you're going to read the comments. They're going to be really mad at me because they're going to say there's no way Force of Will was overrated. The card's busted. Go back, read what was written about it. This card, they were sure that this was going to warp a format, and when it first came out, it did not. It absolutely did not.
I'm preemptively writing my comment, by the way. Hold on.
Thank you. Appreciate that. This is your last pair. You ready?
Oh, shit. Really? Okay.
Yeah, really. End on a high note. Let's go.
Wait, so if I get this, I go 50-50?
Yeah.
No,
sure.
no.
We'll call it that. Sure. Why not?
Oh, my God. Okay. Whatever. It's fine. It's only going to get worse from here. Doom Scar. Unless it is Doom's car, but I don't think it is.
Doom's car.
Doom's car. 3 neutral, 2 white, destroy all creatures. Okay. 4 tell, so 1 neutral, 2 whites. During your turn, you may pay 2 mana and exile this card from your hand face down. Cast it on a later turn for its 4 tell. Oh, so it's always 5 mana, but you can spend the 2 mana earlier and pull it whenever you want to. But okay, so you can only cast that spell at a sorcery speed if you foretell it.
Either way, yes.
Okay. Man, I really like this card. Is this in standard right now?
Doomscar?
I don't think I've never seen it.
No, it's not currently in standard.
I was gonna say I'd play this shit. It seems good. Divide by 0. 2 neutral, 1 blue. Instant spell, return target spell or permanent with mana value 1 or greater to its owner's hand. And you learn. You may reveal a lesson card from your own. A lesson card you own from outside the game and put it into your hand, or discard a card to draw a card. What do you mean? Okay, you're gonna.
Yep. So there are a number of lessons in the set Strixhaven where Divide by Zero was released, and they are generally speaking a bad rate for a mediocre card. And what you would do is you would put somewhere between 2 to 5 of these in your sideboard, and when you cast Divide by Zero and resolved it, you can go into your sideboard, reveal one of these cards, and put it into your hand. But they are usually, like, I gave you the 2 most popular ones. So here are the ones that people use the most.
I am very intrigued by this. It's almost like discovering. Actually, there's a card in Hearthstone that is virtually what this mechanic is. It's called, I don't know if I showed you before, it's ETC. Does that recognize any bells, or does that ring any bells, right?
No.
ETC is a 4-mana 4/4. And when you're in the deck building screen, you could put 3 cards into ETC. And when you play it, you could discover one of those cards. This is the same kind of concept for Divided by Zero. That card, by the way, was played for like ever. It's still played now. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still very good. Like it's a very powerful card. So like that's what I'm basing this entire card off of, because it's kind of the same mechanic of like picking a card from your sideboard, which is like what Hearthstone tried to do. All right, so we got Environmental Sciences, 2 neutral. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle, you gain 2 life. Okay. Mascot Exhibition. The art is amazing. 7 mana. Oh my god. Create a 2/1 white and black inkling creature token with flying, a 3/2 red, and a white spirit creature token, and a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. So this is like you're just flooding the board with all these boys.
Yep. Yeah, it's just a board in a box.
So this one's really interesting because Divide by Zero is, I mean, return a target spell or permanent with mana value 1 or greater to its owner's hand for 3 mana seems okay. I'm not really sure what the value of mana would be for that, but at instant speed, it can be really good. And then on top of that, you contextually can pick a card from your sideboard. How many cards can you look at? Can you just look at like any learn cards or any lesson cards in your sideboard? Like technically, I don't know how many there are, but
yeah, I didn't look up how many exactly are printed. I think it's into the double figures.
Okay.
So I think in theory you could have all sideboard lessons if you want to. You can also have up to 4 of each. I'll tell you, the typical sideboard configuration was like between 2 and 4 lessons, 1 of each one.
And we're talking like when I guess I've never really asked this question, but I'm assuming like these are for like best of 1, or are you just saying like in general?
That's for best of 3 is most of what I've talked about so far. In best of 1, though, you could have a 7-card sideboard, and so in best of 1, it was very advantageous to put in a handful of lessons because you don't use your sideboard otherwise.
Yeah, I was gonna say like this is just like an additional benefit, right?
Yep.
Which is like one of the reasons why Discover ends up being like really good in Hearthstone. Even if you're not discovering a card from your sideboard, just like getting a new card, like that's often just good because of card advantage, like we talked about before, but also contextually based on how the game is going, could make a difference. I'm just trying to decide whether or not like I think like Environmental Sciences, I guess, is good because like it's just 2 mana to draw a land specifically. I think that's fine. I don't know about Mascot. Like that seems like a really, I got nothing else to do. I might as well just play this. So I guess it comes down to how good do I think Doomscar is. Destroying all creatures for 5 seems pretty standard based on what I can tell from like the current power of the game, at least for whites. I'm comparing it to the card that exiles all cards and you get an artifact for 5. I forget what that's called. Scryfall, I want to say it's called. Sunfall. And that card is pretty good from what I can tell. The fact that you can invest 2 mana earlier and then spend the 3 mana whenever you need to is pretty sick. Now, when you foretell, can your opponent like stop you from doing that?
They can't stop you from doing it, no.
But they can, once you actually pay the foretell cost, then they can like counter the spell if they want to.
Yeah, they could counter it at a future turn. Yep.
That seems so good, man. That's so nuts. You know how many games I would be like, fuck, I wish I could do that? Because I'm doing nothing, and then it'd be amazing to have that. I guess it's still sorcery. This one's interesting. I do feel like people would get really hyped up about the lesson cards, though. Like, they'd be like, oh, like, let's fucking go, like, cards aside the game. That seems so powerful, and it's got a pretty good effect. I would have to imagine that Divide by Zero was the overhyped card. I think it's also still fine. But I feel like the other one, like investing earlier to get a board clear earlier, sounds great. So I'm going to go with the overhyped one was Divide by Zero.
Okay. This is a case of both cards are pretty good. Okay. Both cards saw a good amount of play in the format. If I told you one of these cards got banned, would that surprise you?
Yes.
One of these cards did get banned.
In Commander?
In Standard.
Okay.
In Standard for power level reasons.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I can't wait to see which one that was.
So the card that Doomscar, let's start with Doomscar. Doomscar, when previewed, was heralded and often referred to as the first ever 3-mana Wrath, aka 3-mana destroy all creatures, because people immediately saw this play pattern in their control decks of like foretell this on 2, cast it on 3. If your opponent just came out guns blazing and cast, 1 drop, 1 drop, 1 drop, 1 drop, 2 drop, and you Doomscarred them, that you were in a beautiful position. It also opened up these cat and mouse games of there were a lot of cards in the set with foretell. And when you foretell face down. And the foretell cost was always 2. So if you foretold a different card and the opponent thought it was a Doomscar, maybe they played around it when they shouldn't. Or the exact opposite could happen too, right? Where you foretell their Doomscar and they do play around your Doomscar. But it made for interesting games. The hype around Doomscar revolved around 3-mana Wrath. And people were afraid that it would be absolutely format warping, that aggro would be unplayable, and that it would make control by a far the best thing to be doing. Doomscar, in this case, was the overhyped card. And I'm sorry to report that.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
But Doomscar was not the card that got banned. Divide by Zero had no hype coming in. I don't think anybody talked to me about Divide by Zero. The lessons were treated a lot like a limited mechanic. People didn't think they'd be good enough for Standard because they were all a bit off rate. Okay. They were nice, but they were off rate. And anytime you talked about their potential value, people would talk about, in best of 3 competitive Magic, the sideboard slot. You don't want to take a spot away from your sideboard that could be a high impact card for an important matchup to have a lesson. That's the way they thought of it. The way it actually played out was that Divide by Zero is a real motherfucker of a card. And so the card not only is... The card's not only useful when you're behind because you make the tempo play of bouncing something back to their hand and getting value for it, another card in your hand that helps you kind of catch up, but it's also a great tempo play when you're ahead, because if the opponent puts any spell in the stack that was like 3, 4, or 5 mana, you can return the spell to their hand before it resolves. And they have to commit. Yeah, it says return target spell or permanent to the hand. So it takes it right off the stack and throws it back in their hand, and they get nothing.
That's broken.
They get nothing for it. And you get a card out of your sideboard as well. So it wasn't too uncommon that the opponent would go for their like 6-mana power play, the thing that was going to put them stabilize their lead. You cast Divide by Zero, you return it to their hand. They're going to have to try that again. You go get Mascot Exhibition. You untap, you cast Mascot Exhibition. Now they're trying to play their big spell into a board full of stuff. And if you untap and have another Divide by Zero and get to attack them for 9, oh God, the tempo of the game shifted so dramatically.
Wow.
And that people saw no value in casting large spells or creatures anymore. They just got divided by 0. So Divide by Zero got banned in Standard.
That's actually mental.
I
didn't realize that's what that meant. That's crazy. So wow. Okay, so you could counter a spell on the stack, and that's obviously insane.
Oh, even better, because there were a lot of cards at the time. I'll use an example called Coma Cosmos Serpent. This is a giant minion that takes over the game, and it even says on it, can't be countered. Divide by Zero doesn't care. It's not countering it. It's returning it to the hand. So even those cards that were designed to harm blue were useless.
Semantics. That's crazy.
Yeah. I
mean, most people would read it like I read it, right? Where it's like,
yes,
you're just countering a spell. Like, how good it actually is that? But yeah, I guess the language there really makes the difference. And from here on out, I am gonna verify what the card says and actually take into account that it doesn't say counter, because obviously that's much more important. Interesting.
Somewhere the prof is saying that reading the card explains the card.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel better, I played Magic for, at the time, 27 years. Blue was my forte, and I didn't put Divide by Zero on any of my watch lists. I didn't put it in any of my decks. It had to be shown to me before I was like, oh.
I also think it's one of those things where like you kind of need to see it to truly understand. Like, even if you didn't explain it to me and you told me it got banned, I wouldn't have understood it. Like, I'd have to see it like in game or like in person to truly understand how powerful it would be. That's fucked. Yeah. That's so good. Makes sense. Shit, I did so bad, man. Oh my.
I'm kind of, yeah, this is it's a tough game to get your mind around the MTG community. And what I realize the most is how much context matters. Like, people evaluated Umezawa's Jitte based on the format that they were in and the cards that came before it and what they were going through. They evaluated Assassin's Trophy the same way because they'd never seen a card that destroyed target permanent for that cost, and they just ignored the downside. So there's a lot of context to this that is a little hard to spell out. But thank you for playing the game.
I'm gonna get you back for this, by the way. That was ruthless. Can you explain what the trophy is in Assassin's Trophy, by the way? Like, what is the trophy? Like in the photo?
I think what you see there is, I think that's supposed to be an angel statue, like a statue of like a famous angel figure that is getting molded over by moss. And the new art, you know what? Look up the new art on Arena, because it was reprinted in Murders of Karloff Manor, and it's much more straightforward. Okay, I can't answer for this. Thank you for staying till the end. That's the best thing you can do for the channel. Thank you to Raren for joining me and getting absolutely roasted on this one. I'm sure he'll pay me back. So subscribe to his channel where you'll get to see me get destroyed in a future video. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. You're cool.
Oh my God.